Ultimate countdown. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction is coming to change everything you know. Tomorrow, something rare slides into alignment. Most people will barely notice a shift in the weather of their lives. But if you've felt a soft pressure in your chest, a tightening behind your plans, or a quiet urge to finish things you've been leaving half done, this is meant for you. This is the moment where a vision you've carried quietly can meet the structure that finally holds it together. Listen close. Finish one tiny thing today. Cut one doubt loose. Keep the new plan private while it forms. If this is landing with you, type "ready" in the comments. Let that be the small ripple that proves you're paying attention. Saturn and Neptune are easy to reduce to labels, but they behave like two very different friends showing up at once. Saturn brings the scaffolding. It asks for completion, for appointments kept with yourself, for tidy edges and measurable progress. Neptune brings the mist, vast imagination, creative longing, the sense that something beyond what you see is possible. When they meet in conjunction, the mist and the scaffolding press against each other. Dreams find frames. Intuition can be translated into a plan. Think of it this way. Neptune hands you a map drawn in watercolor. Saturn takes out a ruler and a pencil. Alone, the watercolor might fade into the background. Alone, the ruler can make boxes that hold nothing but form. Together, the watercolor becomes a blueprint. That compression, the pressure of bringing vision into form, can feel intense. But intensity isn't always danger. Sometimes, pressure is simply the forge for what's next. Here are 3 simple preparations that will align you with this window. These are not grand rituals. They are micro-commitments that signal to the energy, if you believe in that language, that you are ready to be trusted with what you're imagining. First, finish one tiny task today, under 10 minutes. Choose something you've been postponing because it feels small or inconsequential. Reply to an email that's been sitting in your drafts. Clear a single drawer. Name 3 bullet points for the project you've been circling, or toss one item that no longer belongs to you. The point isn't the task, it's the demonstration. Saturn values proof that you can complete. When you finish one small thing, you confirm to yourself that you can close loops. That simple completion registers inside you as trustworthiness, toward the world and toward your own discipline. Imagine Jenna, who for months had a half-written paragraph saved on her phone titled "Project Idea." She spent a morning setting a 10-minute timer and finishing those 3 lines. 2 days later, a colleague sent a message asking if she wanted to collaborate on something strangely aligned. Coincidence? Maybe. But often, the universe arranges small openings for people who have already shown they can finish what they start. Your tiny completion works as a signal. You are someone who can finish, and that attracts follow-ups that need finishers. Second, remove one influence that weakens your confidence. The conjunction amplifies what you carry. If you carry doubt, comparison, or a draining relationship, the pressure can magnify that noise. Pick one influence you can alter today. This is not about dramatic exits or long lectures. It's about pragmatic removal. Unfollow one account that leaves you small. Mute a chat group that pulls you into negativity for a week. Change one phrase in your self-talk. If a certain person habitually questions your ideas, consider creating a temporary boundary. Say, "I'm focusing on this. Can we revisit feedback next month?" Or limit the frequency of their input. Micro-scenario. Malik noticed his energy sagging after scrolling through a forum where success was displayed like trophies. He unfollowed 3 accounts that triggered comparison. Over the next week, his sense of momentum recovered. He found himself sending an email he'd been revising for months. The conjunction tends to amplify what is present, so eliminate the small things that shrink you. You don't need to rewrite your whole social life. Remove one habitual compression. Third, keep your shift private during the peak. There's power in finishing quietly. When projects are still forming, exposure can lead to dilution. Too many opinions, unnecessary fear, offers of help that change the shape of what you intended. This is not secrecy for manipulation, it's containment for incubation. Use a journal, a private draft folder, or a trusted single confidant if you must share. Make small, internal commitments rather than public declarations. Protect the formative phase so your work can gather its gravity before it faces outside air. Example: Rosa had a new coaching framework she was refining. She set a rule: no public posts about it until she completed a prototype. She spent 2 weeks refining in private, then launched quietly to a small list. The early responses were measured and useful. Had she shouted about the idea too early, she worried it would have been pulled in a dozen directions. Containment kept the design true to her original vision. These 3 steps: finish a tiny task, cut one doubting influence, and protect your formative work, are compact but potent. They work because the Saturn-Neptune conjunction tends to magnify what exists inside you. Think of this conjunction as a magnifying glass. Whatever is already lit inside you burns brighter. That can be wonderful for disciplined focus. It can be uncomfortable if you're still carrying habits that erode confidence. Use this time to clear static so the signal can come through cleanly. Now, how does this alignment usually show up in day-to-day life? Not necessarily as fireworks, more often as a peculiar string of coincidences, a message from someone you haven't heard from in years, a sudden invitation that matches your exact skill set, or 3 unlikely confirmations in a single week. These are the gentle taps on the shoulder that say, yes, continue. Picture a few of these small synchronies. You send a short note to an old contact, and they reply with a link to an opportunity that fits your idea. You mention a phrase in conversation, and later hear that same phrase in a podcast that gives you the structure to build what you were imagining. You finish a minor administrative task you'd been avoiding, and an unexpected invoice arrives that matches the very number you finally sorted, enough to balance a small cash flow worry. None of these events are a cosmic guarantee, but taken together they can function as a trail of breadcrumbs, showing that the window is open. Another sign is a cluster of aligned events. The right people and resources converge within a short span. It may feel like compression before ignition. The pressure builds, then ignition follows. One community member wrote something that many of you have said in your comments. Compression before ignition. It's a vivid way to describe the sensation. Everything tightens, then launches. Hold on to that image if it helps you sit with the pressure rather than panic. But remember, this is an opening, not a hard deadline. The peak of a conjunction often initiates a window of several weeks, sometimes longer, where the energies support commitment and structure. If you don't finish everything tomorrow, you're not late. If plan A doesn't click, you can pivot with the momentum you're building. Think of the peak as a starter pistol that signals a season, not as a gate that slams shut. Pacing here matters. Saturn can be impatient when it sees laziness. Neptune can be restless when it sees too much hurry. The wise response is steady rhythm. Choose the cadence of completion over frantic speed. Small, reliable wins outperform one big, aggressive push that leaves you exhausted. Create a micro-rhythm. 10 minutes to finish a small task, 20 minutes to journal a doubt and reframe it, 5 minutes to breathe and note coincidences. These are tiny acts that accumulate into credible momentum. Here are practical variations you can adopt right now, depending on how you prefer to work. The 10-minute rule. Set a timer for 10 minutes and complete one tiny task. When the timer stops, stop. Don't keep overextending yourself. This is about building a habit of closure, not burning out. The one influence swap. Replace a single negative input with one positive or neutral input. For example, exchange 30 minutes of doom scrolling for 30 minutes of reading a practical guide or listening to a podcast that teaches a skill you want to develop. The quiet launch protocol. If you're working on something new, write a short private manifesto, 3 sentences about what you're building and why. Keep it in a folder no one sees for at least a week. This acts as your internal covenant until the form is ready for public air. The conjunction also rewards small acts of protection. If you're tempted to share early, ask yourself, will publicizing this now change the work? If yes, consider waiting. If no, a modest test with a trusted person is fine. The goal is not secrecy as strategy for control. It is containment to preserve clarity. Now, a few more signs to watch for. Practical and grounded, not mystical guarantees. Notice messages that arrive shortly after you take tiny actions. Observe when a problem you've been turning over suddenly has a clear next step. Pay attention to repeating themes, words, images, or people that appear in different places over a short period. These clusters are often the practical way this alignment communicates. Keep a short coincidences list in your phone. Date, detail, immediate impression. Over time, you'll start to see patterns that tell you whether you're aligning with a productive arc or just chasing noise. You should also guard against one common trap, reading every small occurrence as the start of a new destiny. Amplification can make small things feel huge. That's useful, but it also means you must practice discernment. Ask 3 simple questions before you act on a synchronistic prompt. Does this align with my core values? Does it advance something I can realistically sustain? Does it ask me to protect my integrity? If the answers tend toward yes, move forward. If not, let it pass. There will be moments that feel urgent. The title of this moment, Ultimate Countdown, carries that dramatic energy, and part of my job here is to keep that urgency productive rather than panicked. Treat the countdown like a bell. Hear it, respond with grounded action, and then return to steady work. Urgency without discipline is noise. Urgency with clear, small steps can catalyze durable change. If you're unsure where to start, here's a simple sequence you can do today, right now. 1. Pause and breathe for 1 minute. Close your eyes if you can. Name the one project or dream that feels most alive. 2. Choose one tiny task related to that project that you can complete in under 10 minutes. Do it. 3. Identify one influence that tends to compress or drain you. Remove or mute it for the next 72 hours. 4. Write 3 sentences in a private note describing the shape of what you want. Seal it in that note for at least a week. 5. Watch for coincidences. Note them without needing to interpret them immediately. Repeat this microcycle across days as the window opens. Small, consistent acts compound. Saturn respects repetition. Neptune rewards imagination. Your job is to be the person who can hold both. Let's talk about resistance. Conjunctions can make inner tug-of-war louder. Doubt can sound like caution. Fear can be reinterpretation. When you feel resistance, don't assume it's a sign to stop. Often resistance asks to be witnessed and negotiated, not banished. Use curiosity rather than panic. Where exactly does the resistance live? In a body sensation, in a repeated phrase you tell yourself. Naming the resistances removes some of their power. Practice a short reframing exercise. When a doubting thought surfaces, I can't complete this, I'm not ready. What if they laugh? Write it down, then write one factual counterstatement. Example, I can complete this, might be countered with, I finished a related task last month. Keep the counterstatement brief and grounded. Over time, these counters accumulate into evidence that steadies you during the conjunction. Community matters in the right way. You don't have to go it alone, but be selective. Find people who can hold you accountable with respect for your containment. One person who can read the work and give measured feedback is more valuable in this phase than a crowd's applause or critique. If you share progress, frame the ask. I want feedback on clarity, not on whether you think it's a good idea. That instructs responders to keep their input useful, not disruptive. Now, a short reality check about outcomes. This alignment tends to open windows for people who are already doing the inner work, completing tasks, clearing doubt, protecting their process. It is an accelerator, not a miracle machine. You may find momentum, increased clarity, or synchronistic opportunities. You may not. Either way, use the window to cultivate practices that serve you beyond any single astrological moment. The habits you form now, finishing, protecting, pacing, are what matters long after the conjunction moves on. As we close toward the peak tomorrow, consider one micro-pledge you can make. Pick the one task, the one influence, and the one private container you will commit to for the next 7 days. That small pledge becomes your work agreement with yourself. It does not require drama, only fidelity. Before I finish, I want to bring the community back in. Someone in the comments recently captured this moment succinctly. Compression before ignition. That line has been resonating because it names the pressure without turning it into panic. Compression can feel uncomfortable. Ignition can feel like relief. Trust that the pressure may be part of the process, not a punishment. Use it to sharpen your edges rather than to break your bearings. You are not required to reconstruct your entire life overnight. The title demands drama, ultimate countdown, but the meaningful work is quiet and steady. Small rituals, private commitments, and disciplined pacing are the real engines of change. Hope belongs to you by default. The alignment can meet you where you already are and give traction to the things you are willing to steward. If this message landed with you, take one small visible step right now, finish one tiny thing within the next 10 minutes, and leave a short comment. Finished, so you can mark that moment. That tiny mark is your proof to yourself that you're participating. If you want more guidance on other upcoming windows and how to build sustainable habits around them, subscribe and join the playlist where we explore celestial windows and practical preparations together. We keep it grounded, practical, and focused on steps you can actually take. Tomorrow, the alignment peaks. The window opens. Whether it changes everything you know depends mostly on the small things you choose to do in the silence right now. Finish one tiny task. Remove one doubt. Keep your shift private until it has shape. The universe may nudge you with coincidences. Notice them without needing to force meaning. Pace yourself. Protect your momentum. This is the ultimate countdown, yes, but not a panic alarm. Think of it as a bell calling you to readiness. Answer it with a steady hand and a protected heart. The scaffolding and the watercolor are meeting. If you steward them well, something that lived only in possibility can begin to hold form. Go finish that one tiny thing. I'll see you on the other side of the window.